I'm Holly Davis. I've been working as a professional animal communicator for nearly 27 years now, and today I'm going to be discussing why related knowledge is important within animal communication. So hearing animals speak is literally the underlying basics of animal communication. Hearing them speak is all very well, but you have to understand what it is that they're really saying. So there are lots of sort of like tips and hints here when animals are talking, in that not just the tone and the paralanguage that they use, but also those silent buts and other things that sort of relate to something doesn't quite sound right. So I'll give you a typical, for instance, of this. When you say to an animal, "How are you feeling?" They might say, "Yeah, I'm okay." But you can kind of hear that hesitance within it. And that's the important bit, because what they're actually saying is, "I'm not, but I'm actually just trying to be polite or trying to avoid you asking me what the actual problem is." It's also important to understand as well that you can only hear and repeat what it is that you understand already. So I'll give you an example of this. Say, for instance, if you were working medically with an animal, if you don't have the understanding of physiology, anatomy, how the brain works, and these types of things, you're not going to get them in the kind of detail that you need. You can, from your subconscious memory banks, pull up information that you might not understand at the time, but if you've heard it and heard it in the correct context before, it might be then that you can still repeat that. But basically, as communicators, we will only be able to hear and understand things that are relative to us, things that we already know, things that we already can assimilate to and understand. So if, for instance, I don't know, talking about essential oils or something like that, and the animal's sort of trying to get across to you something that they need essential oil wise for an emotional issue. If you haven't heard the name of that oil before and you don't understand the name of it, it might be the case that you can't hear it. They might show you a picture, they might try and send you a fragrance. But if you don't have that knowledge of that particular oil, for instance, and this is only an example, sort of talking about an oil, then you're not going to be able to repeat it. You're not going to be able to hear it in the right way. So it's very much the case that when you don't have related knowledge, sort of therapies, different sort of things, as I mentioned before, like essential oils, the Bach flower remedies, anatomy and physiology, when you are low in understanding those kinds of things with regards to your knowledge, it's very much going to be the case that it limits you within your animal communication, because you're not going to hear it if you're unable to understand it. So I tend to do a lot of medical work with animals from the point of view of helping sort of solve sort of medical enigmas, the sort of symptoms that they're experiencing, where they have pain and things like that. So in order to be able to do that, I've had to learn about anatomy and physiology. Although I'm not sort of totally up on it, I understand enough that I can get by with it. And also with behaviour as well. I'm a qualified equine behaviourist, and when it comes to behavior, all behavior is the same, all the learning is the same. The only thing that tends to differ is the species related behaviors and needs. So within that, what it enables me to be able to do is to be able to understand the behavior of what's going on. And so kind of once I've kind of put the picture together, what it enables me to do then is actually know exactly what questions that I need to be asking in order to get to the detail. So I'll give you an example of this and why relative knowledge is important. So if somebody were to contact me with their horse that's sort of a bit spooky when it's out and about being ridden, one of the first things I will ask is, are they bitted? If that horse is bitted, I will then ask the horse, is your hearing affected when you are wearing a bit? Because of the nerves that are in the mouth that travel up to the ear, it can be the case that for some horses, that when those nerves are pressed, it affects their hearing. But if it's something that they've become used to, it might be the case that they choose not to mention it, because it's almost just like the new normal to them. So the relative knowledge is so important, because what it does is actually enable you to know what it is that you need to be asking. It's a little bit like asking an animal, "Oh, how's your back?" and the animal sort of saying, oh yes, you know, it's okay. Part of that might be that they're just being polite. Part of it might be the case that it's become the new normal for them. So it's all about the phrasing. Say, for instance, if I was to say to them, I hear that you've been having trouble with L3, so that'll be lumbar vertebra 3, then that enables me to get more sort of like detail from them, because the more specific you are in your questioning, the more specific that the detail is that comes back by way of answer from the animal. So with regards to the example that I just gave with L3, what that does is enable me to be able to pin down sort of thoracic, cervical, lumbar, and around the sacrum as well. So if you didn't have that type of knowledge, all you would have is the animal pointing out, oh, it hurts around this area. And what that does is take the detail out. You cannot get to the detail that you need to get unless that information is there. So what you tend to find in animal communication is that the hearing is only the beginning, as I sort of said in the beginning of this video. It's all about ongoing learning about as much as you can about different therapies. So for instance, if an animal had a problem, what I might do is form imagery as well as the wording and show them different types of therapies and things like that that potentially might be beneficial to them. And what that does is allow them to understand what they then may feel is beneficial, and they will be able to explain to me. However, if I didn't have the knowledge of those different therapies, I wouldn't be able to put it into that context for them so that they would be able to say, yes, I think this is something that I could do with, or yes, this is something that I would feel comfortable having done to me or with me. Certainly, knowledge of behaviour as well, and maladaptive behaviours is of paramount importance in animal communication, because if you haven't got that knowledge, it's going to be very, very difficult to not only understand exactly what the questions are that you need to be asking around the behaviour, but also how to solve them. Because as an animal communicator, I kind of go into it with, I don't just want to give people the information from their animals. I don't want to kind of leave them stuck having nowhere to go. So what I tend to do is help them to understand the behaviour, explain to them ways in which they can help their animal, or try and signpost them to people that can. So understanding what the animal is actually saying is really, really important. So there's a difference between it feels like and something that's actually fact. So something that I come across a lot is an animal saying things like, it feels like my leg's broken. Now, it doesn't mean to say that that is a fact. What they're actually using is a descriptive. And so once you understand the type of pain that it is, then you can kind of start narrowing down what exactly is going on and in which area. So certainly now I'm sure you can understand why relative knowledge is really, really important, because it's going to have a profound impact on how well you can communicate, on how much you can actually help the animal and their guardian. So my advice here is never stop learning. Always look into new things, different therapies, into psychology and anatomy and physiology, and just keep on all of the time. Because what you'll also find in your animal communication journey as well is that animals will teach you things too. So the example that I gave to do with the horse, you know, to do with the spooking, to do with horses being ridden, that was actually taught to me by a horse, because it was a mare. I can't remember her name now because it was quite a few years ago, but she explained it to me. And what I actually did was check it out with an equine dental technician and also a vet. And they both said to me, yes, this is, you know, exactly the case. You know, this can happen with some horses. It would make sense from an anatomy point of view with regards to the nerves. And so it was because of that one horse and that one learning and that sort of lesson that she taught me, that now I know in order that when a horse is speaking, it's always one of the questions that I will ask, because the sort of like the inhibited hearing can become the new normal when ridden. So it might be something that they choose not to say. And again, this is just another classical example of why related knowledge is so important. So when choosing an animal communicator, always make sure that they have related knowledge. You know, question them if you need to in the beginning, find out what it is that they're used to working with, because we all work in different areas. I work in all areas of animal communication other than missing, lost, and stolen pets. And so what I tend to find the main of the things that I work with tends to be behaviour, psychological, emotional problems and medical problems. That seems to be the ones that kind of come to me a lot. And so the more that I've worked with them, the more that I've been able to learn and the more that I keep researching. So I hope that what I've explained in this video kind of spurs you on to sort of get learning, because you're only as good as the knowledge that you have. And the more that you keep learning, the more that you're going to succeed in animal communication and the more animals that you're going to help. And of course, that's what we all wish for. So thank you for watching, and I will catch up with you soon. Take care.